All right, today we're going to break down one of the most tangled and frankly disturbing stories of our time, the Epstein files.
You've got these three things, right? Power, money, and secrets. This story is what happens when they all collide, and it pulls in some of the most famous and influential people on the planet. So, it all boils down to this one question, doesn't it? How on earth did one guy, Jeffrey Epstein, build this empire that basically seemed to put him completely above the law? To figure that out, we've got to go back to the beginning.
Okay, first up, a look inside his secret empire. To really get what happened here, you first have to understand just how massive his wealth and his influence truly were.
You know, his backstory is just wild. In the 70s, he's a high school math teacher, but he had his eyes set on Wall Street, and boy did he make it. He gets in with billionaires, starts managing their money, and before you know it, he's building a massive fortune of his own. And the lifestyle that came with that money, it was just off the charts. We're talking about the biggest private mansion in all of Manhattan, a sprawling 75,000-acre ranch out in New Mexico, and yeah, his very own private island in the Caribbean. And that island, Little St. James, it became infamously known as Epstein Island. And it was really the crown jewel of his whole operation. On the surface, a picture-perfect Caribbean resort. But underneath, well, that's where things get really dark. There was even this weird temple-like structure there. To this day, nobody's really sure what it was for. But his real power, it probably wasn't just the money. It was the people he knew. Think about it. Presidents like Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. Royalty like Prince Andrew. Tech titans like Bill Gates. Hollywood stars. All of them were in his orbit. Many even flew on his private jet. And that leads to a really chilling theory. Because when the FBI finally raided his properties, they found stacks of CDs and photos. This is why so many people believe his real source of power was blackmail, that he was collecting dirt on all his powerful guests to keep them in line. So, behind all that glitz and glamour, something absolutely horrific was happening, and for a long time it was all hidden. But eventually, the silence was broken. The first real crack in this whole thing appeared back in March of 2005. That's when a victim named Courtney Wild did something incredibly brave. She went to the police in Palm Beach, Florida, and filed the very first report against Epstein. And you can't tell this story without talking about Ghislaine Maxwell. She was more than just Epstein's girlfriend. She was described as the alleged mastermind of the whole trafficking network. Her role, they say, was to find and recruit underage girls, promising them jobs and a better life. So as investigators are finding dozens and dozens of victims, the world is watching, expecting real justice. But what happened next? Well, it was one of the most shocking plea deals you'll ever hear about. Just look at this contrast. The accusations involved dozens of underage victims. The actual sentence he served, just 13 months. And get this, he was given daily work release, meaning he could leave the jail every single day. It's just unbelievable. This deal was hammered out by the U.S. attorney at the time, Alexander Acosta. And it wasn't just about giving Epstein a slap on the wrist. The really critical part is that it also gave immunity to his powerful friends and associates. It was designed to keep their names out of it. So Epstein probably thought he'd gotten away with it, that the story was over. But he was wrong, because the victims and a few really tenacious journalists just refused to let it go. And for the next decade, the pressure just kept building. In 2009, a civil lawsuit. In 2011, a bombshell interview naming Prince Andrew. But the real tipping point came in 2018, when a huge investigative report exposed that secret deal. The public outrage was massive. And finally, in 2019, the walls closed in. Jeffrey Epstein was arrested again.
And this time, it was different. No more secret deals. He was facing life in prison. And a lot of powerful people were probably very nervous that he was about to start talking. But then, the story took another bizarre, shocking turn.
On the morning of August 10, 2019, inside a maximum security federal jail, Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his cell. The official report declared it a suicide. But come on, that answer just didn't sit right with a lot of people. How does this happen? How does the most high-profile inmate in the country die right before he's set to go to trial and maybe expose everyone? And when you look at the details from that night, it gets even weirder. First, he was taken off suicide watch, which makes no sense. Then, The two guards who were supposed to be watching him, they supposedly fell asleep. And to top it all off, both cameras outside his cell just happened to malfunction at the exact same time. A lot of people look at that and think, no way that was a coincidence.
So, Epstein died without ever facing a trial, but the story was far from over, because now the focus turned to everyone who helped him and to all the secrets that were still buried. And while Epstein himself escaped a final judgment, his chief accomplice did not. In June of 2022, Ghislaine Maxwell was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. The victims finally got to face her in court and tell their stories. But even with that conviction, so much is still in the dark. We're talking about over 1 million pages of documents. Think flight logs, client lists, all the records of his network that are still sealed, completely hidden from the public.
And that's really where we're left. It leads to this huge, lingering question. Yes, some justice has been served, but the real core of the mystery is still there. With so many secrets still locked away in those documents, you just have to wonder, will we ever really know the full truth?